to former Labor Secretary Tom Perez. You issued a statement saying, quote, "At a time when Republicans control the White House, the U.S. House, U.S. Senate, and 2/3 of all state houses, it is imperative that Tom Perez understands that the same old is not working." So, Senator, did the same old win?
Well, look, Keith ran a great campaign. He took on, in essence, Democratic insiders, and yet he came close to winning. That was a very impressive effort when you realize that he was playing inside the establishment's house. But right now, I think Tom Perez, who was a very, very good Secretary of Labor, has a real opportunity in his hands, and I hope he seizes it. And that is to understand that, in fact, the way the Democratic Party has been run for decades has not worked. We need a total transformation. We've got to open up the party to working people, to young people, and make it crystal clear that the Democratic Party is going to take on Wall Street. It's going to take on the greed of the pharmaceutical industry. It's going to take on corporate America that is shutting down plants in this country and moving our jobs abroad. The idea that Trump thinks that the Republican Party is going to be the party of working people when he has appointed people to his administration who want to cut Social Security, want to cut Medicare, want to cut Medicaid, who want to provide a budget which will give huge tax breaks to billionaires like Trump and then cut back on education and health care for the American people. If that's a party that stands for working people, God help us all. So I think our job now is to rally the grassroots to take Trump on and to fight for a progressive agenda.
Well, you saw President Trump's tweet suggesting that the system was rigged against Keith Ellison in the same way that the DNC system was rigged against you in the primaries. Does he have a point?
No, he doesn't have a point. That's what the system is. And one of the things that Tom is going to have to change is to figure out how we elect national Democratic leaders. I'm not quite impressed with the process that now exists. But the bottom line here right now is that yesterday, among other things, there were 150 rallies all across this country, most of them in front of Republican congressional offices, where citizens of this country are telling their members of Congress, have the guts to come out and meet with us, explain to us why you're going to repeal the Affordable Care Act, throw 20 million people off of health insurance, do away with pre-existing conditions. Don't hide. Don't simply run to your wealthy campaign contributors. Talk to your constituents. And you are seeing that movement, millions of people engaged. We are going to transform this country.
Well, let me ask you, sir, because you have a massive email list that helped your presidential campaign raise $218 million online from 2.8 million donors. Are you going to give your list to the Democratic National Committee so that you can help them become more grassroots?
We are going to do everything that we can, and we have started that progress to transform the Democratic Party into a party that stands up for working families. And we have and we will strongly support those candidates who are going to take on the issues of income and wealth inequality. They're going to take on the greed of the pharmaceutical industry. Those people who want to make public colleges and universities tuition-free, who understand, unlike President Trump, that climate change is real and that we've got to transform our energy system. So we're going to work to support progressives who are running for the Senate, who are running for the House, who are running, and Tom Perez made this point, for school board, for city council, for state legislature. I'm right now in Kansas. Last night we had 5,000 people coming out in Topeka, Kansas. Kansas is not a Democratic stronghold, but we're beginning to see an activation here in Kansas and in states and communities all over this country, people who are prepared to take on Trump, people who are prepared to fight for progressive change.
That sounded like you were saying that you're going to keep your email list to support the candidates that you think are progressives, and you're not going to give it to the Democratic National Committee. Did I interpret that incorrectly?
Well, where we are right now is that we are going to support and have supported and will continue to support those candidates who have the guts to stand up for working families and take on the big money interests, the people around Donald Trump. You know, Jake, when you talk, when President Trump talks about being the party of working people, man, he has certainly put together an administration of working people. He has more billionaires, more millionaires in his cabinet and his administration, any president in history. He has appointed people who are going to decimate the needs of the elderly, the children, the sick, and the poor. So what we are going to do is support those candidates who have the guts to stand up to the 1% and fight for the 99%.
Okay, I think my interpretation was correct, but let's talk about that you're talking about right now. President Trump said at CPAC on Friday that he likes you because he says you are right on trade. And take a listen to what the president's top advisor, Steve Bannon, had to say about the Trans-Pacific Partnership, that trade deal with Asian countries that you vehemently opposed.
I think one of the most pivotal moments in modern American history was his immediate withdrawal from TPP. That got us out of a trade deal and let our sovereignty come back to ourselves.
I know that you disagree with many aspects of the Trump-Bannon agenda, and you disagree with Goldman Sachs executives, et cetera, in the administration. But when the president talks about fair trade and economic nationalism, and Steve Bannon does as well, does that strike a chord with you at all?
Well, what strikes a chord with me, and I have been on this issue well before President Trump was. We have had a series of trade agreements in this country, NAFTA, CAFTA, PNTR with China, and the TPP, that were written by big money interest to the detriment and the harm of working people. We have lost millions of decent paying jobs over the last 25 years through trade agreements that were written by corporate America that benefited corporate America. So the devil is in the details as to what Trump is going to do. What we need is a fair trade policy, not an unfettered free trade policy. Trade is a good thing, but it has got to be fair to the American workers, not just the CEOs of large multinational corporations.
Senator Bernie Sanders joining us from Kansas.